Innova Technology, and definitely our seminar partner, Siemens, for making this seminar possible. So we can now get started with the second session. And for that, I'd like to call upon our speaker, who is Monali Shah. I'd like to say that Monali has come all the way from the US on our invitation just to talk here. So we're very grateful to have Monali here today. She's the Director of Intelligent Transportation at HERE Technologies. She has spearheaded product innovation and management in digital maps, real-time data, and other location-based products. She currently leads the company's work with transportation agencies in the areas of connected and automated driving, smart cities, traffic operations, planning, and performance management.
Thank you. It's an honor to be here. You know, as an Indian American working in the US, it's quite an honor to be able to be looking across the globe and come back to India to work on some of the challenges and the opportunities here. And you know, as I've been coming to India over the last many years, from when I was a young child to now, I've seen amazing transformations, especially over the last 10 to 15 years. Every time I come, I see improvements in the infrastructure, new investment, and new ways to be able to move around. And so it's great to see the progress that's happening here in India. And across the world, I feel like it's really an exciting time in transportation. People, things, goods are all becoming more connected. And with this connectivity, there's an explosion in data. And so there's this opportunity to look at all these challenges that we've had in the past and solve them in new ways. And so what I'm going to do today is highlight some of the trends and the things that we're seeing across the globe and give you some tangible examples of ways that we've been able to implement data and technology to solve some of these challenges in the transportation sector. And then I'll bring it back to some of the work we're doing in India. Whoops. Uh-oh. Oops, I think I lost. Okay, there we go. So, you know, as we look, we see that connectivity is increasing across the globe. Devices are getting connected, the infrastructure is growing, we're all getting more connected. And with that, there's this explosion of data that's coming. We see that across the automotive industry, from mobile phones, from all kinds of different devices, there's more and more data that's being generated. And then there's new business models like the on-demand economy. So there's all kinds of different things that are happening. And the question is really, how do we leverage those new types of information that are coming to solve some of these big challenges? And if we look at today, you know, we've been talking about the levels of congestion, right? Cities are becoming more and more congested. And you know, I just came from Mumbai, and I feel like from the last time I was there just a year and a half ago, I can even feel the difference. And so that congestion is there. It's creating an environmental impact. You can feel it with the air pollution. There's economic costs. And then there's the cost of lives. There's the safety aspect, as we heard earlier in the session today, of how many lives are lost on the roads. So globally, this is a big challenge. We have 1.25 million people who are dying on our world's roads every year. We have cars, the number of cars are increasing across the globe. And then the air pollution is another side effect. We have health problems and deaths being caused by air pollution. So the challenges are quite big. And when we take into account some of these trends, and then we look at some of the opportunities that are of technology trends that are happening. We have artificial intelligence, and we saw earlier from Mobileye some of the solutions they're working on. We are training machines to learn and be able to interpret the world around us. And so it's exciting because there's that potential of how we can leverage these kinds of technologies to address some of these challenges we have. We have the on-demand economy. We have data analytics. And when you look across all these dimensions, one of the common elements is location. And that's where we come in, is we're trying to look at all these different trends and say, okay, how do we make sense of all this data coming from all these different places and use it to actually solve some of these challenges? So in today's world, it's still, there's all this data that is increasing, but it's still pretty much in silos. So we have the vehicles, trucks, goods, people, packages, all kinds of things have data now, but they're all locked up in these data silos. And so even if the amount of data is increasing, if we can't actually tap into the different data sets that are available, we can't really solve these problems very effectively. So that's one of the challenges that we're working on across the industry, is breaking down the walls of these data silos across the public sector, the private sector, the automotive industry. And the good news is that these silos are coming down. And I'll give you some examples of it. So as we look across the different areas, we have vehicles and fleets, we have people, infrastructure, and things. And we're looking to connect data from all these different sources and then apply location intelligence and aim them at the problems that we're trying to solve. So data for the sake of data is not really useful. So we really have to think of what are the problems that we're trying to solve. So, one of the things that we've seen happening, which is really encouraging, is this notion of open data. And so in the US, in Europe, many of the government agencies that we work with and have really started to embrace this notion of opening up data and creating these open data portals. We've seen this also on the automotive side, and I'll give you some examples of these. And so what we believe is that it's going to take collaboration across all kinds of industries. And you see many industries up there. Our role in that is really creating the foundation that these different applications can be built off of. And so we have what we call a reality index, where I'll talk a little bit about that, where we develop the maps and the location data that then all these applications can be built on. And then we have a platform that allows others to develop and take all this location data and enrich their own data and take it back for their own purposes. And we know that there's so many different applications out there and so many different needs, and by opening up the data, we can unlock all this potential in these different areas and get data from these different sources that help different industries. So starting with that foundation, we call it the reality index. This is the basic foundation of location data. So this is the road network, the points of interest. Going beyond the roads, it's transit data, bus routes. It's connecting to all these different elements so that you have a baseline that you can build on top of. And so that's what we've spent many years doing, is built that foundation. And just to give you an example of the type of data we process, so we've mapped 200 countries across the globe. And then we're collecting data from many different sources, from mobile devices, vehicles. And in today's world, every month we're processing 100 billion probe points just to develop our real-time traffic products. So the magnitude of this data is quite large, and the aim of it is to really be able to address these different transportation challenges. So I'll give you a few examples across the globe. So we're partnering across the globe with different transportation agencies. And I'll give you an example from the US, from Europe, and here in India. Because as we talked about earlier, and as the secretary and the other panelists said, the solutions are not necessarily the same everywhere. The needs and the priorities are different. So what we do is take the underlying data and then leverage that for the specific needs and priorities of the agencies in those areas. So I'll start, as I go through these examples, one thing I want you to think about is it's not just about that one example, because the thing that we need to think about is that really connecting the different elements and closing the loop between vehicles, agencies, and travelers. So in each of these examples, you'll see that there's a connection where data is coming from one place, it's being used by another entity, and it's a closed loop, and that cycle continues. And so just think about that as we go through some of these examples. And I'll start with an example in traffic management. So this is the city of San Francisco, and what we do here, this is an example. Let me see if I could just get this video started. Hold on. Well, okay, I'm not sure if that's, I'll just keep going. But what we do is we collect GPS probe data. And so these are probes that come from mobile devices, from connected vehicles, could also come from other sensors. Yeah, okay, thank you. And we're collecting all this data in real time. And this is an example in San Francisco. And you could kind of see as the city wakes up, you see much more red. You see probes going all around the city. And it's a 24-hour view. And then you'll see as nightfall starts approaching, you'll see the number of probes going down. You'll see less red color. But it gives you a sense of how the city is moving. And there's a lot of power in this data, being able to collect and process this data to see how are people actually moving about the city and in real time. So you can see what are the conditions, how are they changing over the course of time. So we take this data and we use this to solve a number of different challenges. So we start on the operations side. Many times, traffic management centers that we work with will use this in their operations centers just to even understand what's happening across their road network. So they'll use it to make decisions about, with the tools that they have, of how to better operate their road network. They'll also use it to provide information to travelers, communicating via the dynamic message signs, have applications to provide routing and guidance, and provide that real-time traveler information. So you have that engagement with the citizens. And then the last area is the planning and performance management. And that's where historical data comes in. So if you think about many of the decisions that have to be made as an infrastructure operator, it's challenging to know where should I invest my resources. And so now agencies have data that they can look at over time, where are my most congested areas? What kind of bottlenecks do I have in my city? And be able to actually quantify those things so they can determine where are the right places for me to make my investments. They can also use this data to look at things like air pollution levels. So there's many different ways this historical data can be used that helps really take a data-driven approach. And I'll just give you a little bit more detail on, oops, sorry, I clicking the wrong button here. So many agencies in the US will use this for advanced traffic management. And so they'll use this to alert drivers so you have that safety impact, reduce congestion, and then manage big road construction projects. There's always road construction projects, and there's the whole aspect of where should I do the projects, but then while a project is going on, how is that project being managed? What's happening in real time? Did it go according to my plan, or do I need to make adjustments on lane closures? So this real-time data is used in these kinds of operational settings. And many agencies have found while, in the past they put in fixed road sensors, those are, they can be expensive to maintain over time. And so while they might have them in certain parts of their road network, they can really expand their coverage across their network by complementing fixed sensors with this kind of GPS probe-based data, because it's too expensive to put sensors on every road. So these are the kinds of applications that are happening in the US. And now, that's the operations side. From the traveler's side, travelers really are demanding that they have all the options now. They want to know, what are all my options in real time across all the different modes, whether it be driving, transit, walk, bike, ride share, car share. There are so many mobility options, and based on where I am, what time it is, what is the best option for me? And so you see, we have our own apps. Here we go. There's many different apps out there now that are helping travelers determine the best way to get around, and then giving the guidance of how to get there safely and conveniently. The other part of this is that these kind of applications are generating data, right? So this GPS probe data and other kinds of data that we can collect from these applications and anonymize and use generates better information back to the travelers, back to the operations center. So you can again see that kind of closed loop that happens. So the next example I'll talk about is getting more into the vehicle safety and mobility side. And we've had some exciting developments here too. On the automotive industry, typically every automotive company has been in their own silo. And what we've seen is those walls are also starting to break down. So we've seen that now there are 3 automotive companies that are sharing their vehicle sensor data with us. And that is data such as, the hard braking activity, friction, wiper activity. So these are coming directly from the sensors in the vehicle. And it's really that next generation of crowdsourced data that comes right from the vehicle. And then that data comes to us, we process that data, and now we can send it back out to the vehicles in the ways of being able to do different kinds of safety hazard alerts. And this is significant because, again, these silos are coming down. These are competing car brands that have agreed to share this kind of data, which hasn't happened in the past. So if you can imagine, if the car is detecting a slippery road condition, that data is useful to alert a vehicle so that they can avoid that condition. It can also be useful to send to an operations center, a road operator, to say, hey, there's a condition out there that you can now go and potentially send out somebody to take care of that situation to alleviate the condition, improve mobility, avoid accidents. And so this is providing that kind of information in both ways. There's also activity like, or data like hard braking activity. So if there's sudden traffic jams that are unexpected, that kind of information can now be detected and then used by the agencies or by the vehicles to receive alerts. So this is the power of this kind of data as things get more and more connected. And the way that we look at it, we're really trying to connect all these different areas. So when we're detecting incidents that come from vehicles, we can send that information to a city traffic management center. And oftentimes, cities are collecting other kinds of information that are relevant for the vehicle. And so we're collecting the data that comes from the city agencies as well and distributing that information in a very targeted way to make sure that the travelers are getting the right information. So those are some examples from Europe and from the US. Now let's move to India. The challenges here are immense, but I think the opportunities are also. So, as I've been kind of experiencing it, I was in Mumbai before I came here visiting family, and just, the sheer kind of magnitude of all the challenges can feel pretty overwhelming. But I'm also really excited to see all the progress that's been made. And hearing the panel this morning, I see that there's this momentum building with the smart cities efforts, and it's really exciting to see that initiative is being taken here. And so we've also been working with some other agencies here in India, and so I thought I'd share a couple of examples of some of the progress that's being made here. So one of the things that we've been doing is working with the state of Rajasthan to create a unified data platform. So, one of the challenges is often within an agency, data is within, even one agency, data can be in all kinds of different silos, right? And so it's hard within an agency even to access information. And so there's this need to collaborate across the different entities, even within one agency, and then also to be able to share that information with citizens. So they've created this data-driven unified platform where they're integrating all kinds of data, starting with the map data and GIS and layering in all the different kinds of data that they collect as an agency so that they have one portal where everything is accessible. So this is being used by the police stations, the educational institutions, medical, financial. So it really provides that basis for being able to have that platform to make better decisions. In the UP, we've been working on a public safety application with the Dial 100. So, one of the challenges is for police and emergency vehicles is to actually find their way to the locations where they need to be going, and, based on real-time traffic conditions, routes, what roads should I take. So in the UP, they are serving a population of 200 million, and it's quite challenging to be able to serve the population effectively without really having the right data. And so they have been using this location data for their back end and being able to do route calculations and see where can the vehicles get within 10 minutes, within 20 minutes, and be able to effectively deploy them. And they've seen really amazing results. They've provided assistance to over 600,000 cases in the first 100 days. And over the last 9 months have been able to save 800 lives. So these are things that maybe seem quite basic, but the impact of them, of being able to have the right information to be able to make these kinds of decisions, and minutes matter in these kinds of cases. So those are a couple of local examples. So, as we look at this whole world of data, data for the sake of data is not really what we're going for. We're really trying to use it to make informed decisions. And so whenever I go and advise with agencies, I said, let's first start with the need. What are the biggest problems you're trying to solve? And let's then figure out what's the right way to take the data and aim it at solving that problem. And in order to do this, it takes citizen engagement, right? In the end, we're trying to do this to improve the quality of life of the citizens and improve the journey for travelers. So that's the number one thing. And next, it really takes data scalability. So as we think about and design our systems, we really have to think about the nitty-gritty stuff, like the formats of data. Is it consistent? Is it machine readable? Can it be scalable? Because if we just do them for this project or that project, we can't really make it work for broader scale solutions. So that's the second key thing. And the third is collaboration. It really takes collaboration across the industry, public sector, private sector, various industries, to really be able to solve some of these challenges. And with that, I think there's a lot of potential, and I'm excited about the opportunities there are in India to really unleash the power of data to solve some of these big challenges. Thank you.